traders, and welcome to the Friday Market Watch on the 11th of November. So we saw some huge market moves overnight. Obviously the CPI data was favourable to the market, and people are starting to think now that there is a pivot in the inflation story. So we'll jump straight into the charts and see if we can identify any trades for today or early into next week. So we'll start out here with the Aussie USD, as we always do. And look, obviously, this has seen a big move. The real beneficiary of the dollar-based pairs, because obviously the dollar index just sold off. We'll get to that shortly. But anything Australian dollar, Euro USD, all of those are going to be really big moves. Look, it did bounce off the 20 moving average. It was very difficult to trade. Last night provided a very difficult trading environment if you're actually trading and trying to scalp, because the moves happened so quickly that you weren't able to really get in. But if you were actually swing trading and looking at the longer term, I think that's where probably you would have been able to capture that move. Like, I've actually left the arrow that we had here. We've drawn this up quite a while ago. We thought that around here was probably the bottom, around that 61.80. You can see the lightning bolt in blue. I'll just zoom it in a little bit. I left it in there in place on purpose, really, because it's really a good way to show, when a market does actually pivot and start to move up, what actually happens. And really, as you can see, we've been in a series of lower highs and lower lows for quite some time. It's going to be very prevalent on the euro as well. So I think today's really more a lesson in, looking for the signs that we actually did pick up quite a while ago and actually being able to work with them. You can see that we've seen a series of lower highs and lower lows for a long time. This is a daily chart, right? So this is a no-nonsense chart. But the first series of higher highs and higher lows we got were here. And as you can see, although we've had plenty of market turmoil in between, it hasn't actually made a lower high, lower low sequence. So it actually has been in an uptrend all the way from here. And you were able to trade that anytime right through there. So if you were looking at that as a pivot point and thinking that, a bottom has been found, remember, it did make another small bottom here, which we know was very strong support at this level here. If you extend this line, that line was support there. So there was no reason why it wasn't going to be sort of support here as well. As you can see, it's come back and touched it. And realistically, it's been trading above the 20 moving average. These are all the things that we talk about every single day when we're doing these videos about looking for those signs that the market has turned around. Okay, so at that point there, we knew that we've seen a pretty good story. We know we've got very strong support. Okay, you may have missed that big move. It had happened in a matter of minutes. If you weren't there, you probably would have missed it. But I guess my point is, though, that even at this level here, you could have had a chance to potentially enter this if you believe in the long story and the point that the bottom is effectively in. So it's always good to know what we're looking for, because then you can actually trade accordingly. Trading the news is never a good idea. We've said this a million times and we'll say it a million times in the future. It's never a good idea to trade the news because it's very difficult to actually get. And to highlight that point, I mean, look, let me go to even a 5-minute chart. I'll zoom it right out so you can see that happened in the news. Once the news got released, bang. I mean, how do you trade that? Let's go to the smallest. We'll go to a 1-minute chart and see what it looked like. If we can look at that again, in 1 minute, the market went from 64.13 to 65, like nearly 100 pips in a minute. How do you trade that? You can't, right? Unless you're actually in at the start. And like I said, if you did that, you were effectively trading the news on a 1-minute time frame, trading higher high and higher low sequences. And although it worked out for you, boy, oh boy, I mean, if the news was the opposite, it would have gone down just not quite as much, but it certainly would have gone down and probably wiped out your stop loss. So you've got to be really careful that trading the news is going to give you very limited trading opportunities, but trading the story and trading the longer term trend, which is what we're effectively doing here, is a very different beast. Okay, so and it's playing the game exactly like we were hoping it would. So we'll move over to the US dollar CAD now. US dollar CAD is one that is effectively doing the same thing as the Aussie, just except in reverse. Lower high, lower low sequences, 20 moving average pullback, down. This one didn't even make it to the 20, got close, but it didn't even make it to 50. But the news did that, of course. I mean, at the end of the day, if it wasn't CPI last night, it probably would have tracked up to the 20 moving average and then eventually sold off. But my point is, though, you look at that and the moves aren't quite as extreme as they are in the indices. When we get to the indices, you'll see some real psycho movement. But in this regard, we're fast approaching a 20-50 moving average crossover. We've got a series of lower highs and lower lows. Would you be taking longs on this longer term? No, absolutely not. Not until we see a sequence that actually warrants it. And we're not seeing any lower high, lower lows, high low sequences coming out of this trend has changed now. So it's really important to keep an eye on that sort of thing, okay? As you can see, knowing the bigger picture, again, this is a daily chart. We're into negative territory in the MACD now. We know the 12 is below the 26. Things aren't looking great for the dollar-based pairs, and like I said, we'll see the dollar index in a second that will really tell the story. US dollar yen is no different daily. When it landed on our support that we talked about last week. Last week we were trading around this level here. We said that the next potential level is going to be 45. It did that, hung around there for about 3 or 4 days, or 3 days here, really, and then the big sell down straight to the next level, which is the next support level at 41. Now, again, I think I said it last week, like 41 seemed a hell of a long way away from the 47 and 48 where it was hanging around. But things happen very, very quickly in the market, especially when we're in a downtrend and there's news involved as well, right? So when you've got your level set, you know what your targets are. Yeah, my personal opinion last week was that the 45 was going to be, definitely a target if it started to sell off on lower high, lower low sequences on the smaller time frames. That it did. And then the big push down, of course, with the smashing of the dollar index. We'll go to that one too. But look, again, this is at that next level now. It's broken it. It may continue on. If it does continue to sell down, we actually do need another level, and that's going to be the 39. So I'll put that horizontal line there for us. That is definitely the next level that we need to keep a real close eye on. If this continues to sell off, the next level is going to be this 39 level. Okay, so the 38.80 to 39, 138 to 139. Okay, that's the level that we're talking about. 138.80 to 139. It's a zone. That's where we're aiming for if we continue with the lower high, lower low sequences on the yen. Okay, the dollar index, one of the biggest stories. Look, again, you look at it, and this has been an orderly sell-off. Okay, we saw this last week. The weakness was still, even though we're showing a little bit of strength through this area here, it was failing to make that new high. And until it did, and this is why I was saying last week, until it actually makes that new high and closes above it, this is still in a downtrend. We've got a series of lower highs and lower lows. There's no question about that. And we've been down. And I know a lot of people say, well, you can't trade the news and you can't do this. It's too hard to get in. You know what? We're not trading the news when we're seeing weakness here. This had nothing to do with a CPI number or non-farm payroll number. This is a weakness, an overall weakness in the dollar strength that you could see it keeling over. We were watching it keel over as we were doing our videos, as you remember. So when it failed to make that high again, and then we saw this candle, we were already weak. We were weak at the start of the week. So to speak, and then it broke the roll reversal zone. Once it actually broke that roll reversal zone, this was going to be in trouble. A little mini retest of it from below. As you can see, it went down all the way to 109 and then came back up to the 110. That retest from below and then smash. And like I said, that would have been impossible to get that last candle unless you were absolutely trading the news and hit the button right on it. That would have been extraordinarily difficult to get, but the story was already there, and you were looking for weakness already at this point here. You got a series of, I'll go to a smaller time frame just to give you an example, but you can see the 20 and the 50 are about to cross on the dollar index. They haven't crossed in a very, very long time, and it's about to happen. They haven't crossed since all the way back down at 95. That's to give you a bit of an idea of how long it's been since the 20's been actually below the 50 moving average. But look, I'll go to a very, very small time frame. I'll go to a 15 minute. I don't like going much lower than 15 minutes, by the way. But you can see here, this is where it hit the support. It was already starting to keel over, but again, you would have had to have actually traded the news to actually take advantage of that, right? But it saw a big fall, and then it came back and touched the 20 moving average, and that did give you an opportunity to get back in again. Okay, so once the news is out of the way, once you come back in, let's say an hour later, it touches your moving average, and it gives you, if you're really, really scalping, it does give you a chance to get back in. But again, I prefer to stick clear of days like that because, we get trade opportunities all the time. This is now broken past a very, very important key roll reversal, which is right here. But again, this is a whole zone. So it's really, really important to remember that this level here, I'll show you what I'm talking about. Right there was a key port, and so is here. Here at the 1750 is a very important zone. Now, I would probably expect that this will pull up and hover around the 1750. More than likely, that's what's going to happen. There hasn't been a big sell-off. But if it does continue to go down, it's got another big fall to go. And the next real level is around that 104.80 to 105. So look, I'll put a horizontal line there. Let's just draw a heap of lines because, these are important levels that are getting broken now, and it may not respect them. It didn't respect the 108.50 at all. The 107.50 may hold up, but if it continues to settle down and continues to print lower high and lower low sequences, you could expect it to get around the 105, 106 level again. So seems extreme, but we've already seen the big move, and it is definitely in a downtrend. It has been for quite some time. All right, over to the euro, the beneficiary of the dollar index, of course. No real surprises here. We saw again, look, this is the lightning bolt that I was talking about. I put that in the same time, I put the Aussie lightning bolt in way back at the start of, or actually in the middle, it was about the start of October. Once it did the higher low sequence with, and we saw the lightning bolt and price action, once it did this break up above the 100, we're in a technical uptrend. And if you go all the way out, all the way down here, you can see a series of lower highs and lower lows, no question about that. This was the first time that we actually had a decent lightning bolt from a very, very key level. And if you look at that and say, okay, I'm going to follow that very closely, you know that we're already in an uptrend and have not shifted to a downtrend in all this time. So it's a very, very important note to know which way the trend is going, because what you'll find is when the trend and overall momentum on the bigger time frames is actually working in your favor, news tends to go in your favor. And I'm not saying to trade the news, but generally, it usually complements the direction of the trend most of the time, news, unless it's a black swan or a ugly, unexpected event. People have been waiting and hanging for a reversal in a potential inflation number. Okay, so and that was CPI is a very, very important number for inflation. So people are hanging on that reversal because that's what everybody's talking about. But the market had already anticipated that we are starting to look like reversing, and the euro is obviously the biggest beneficiary of that when the dollar index falls. All right, the last one we'll have a look at is the all-important S&P 500. Again, this has been just an absolute trading bonanza. I've been loving this. We've got so many good trades out of it. Up at the 39.50 now. Really, really big move, obviously. It's the same thing. All these things moved in a minute or two, so it was impossible to scalp. But again, it was a double bottom at a very, very important level. Okay, we went up. We tested the 20 moving average. We went up again, tested the roll reversal zone. Classic technical analysis 101, comes back down, hovers above the 20 moving average, fails to break the 20 moving average, and then starts to trend up again slowly. Now, it's not an easy catch, like I said, with news, because the market is expecting it. But again, when the technicals are playing out and the momentum is shifted, the downtrend was ended at this level here, because that was the first lightning bolt, as you can see. And it really hasn't negative lightning bolted since, and it's hovering on the 20 moving average. So, realistically, you wouldn't be shorting it, would you? I mean, at the end of the day, unless this candle here made a lower low at this point here. So if it got down to 36, say 60 area, and we had the high, the low, the lower high, and the lower low, different story altogether. But it wasn't doing that. It was actually holding up above the 20 moving average. And I talked about that in the stream yesterday, that it was the stronger of, or one of the stronger ones of the 4 big indices in the US, and it was holding up really, really strongly. It didn't get the lower low, and of course it bounced off and off it went. Now, where to from here is really interesting. I think we'll probably see a little bit of a cool off. More than likely, after a really, really big move like that, you generally see a little bit of a cool off in the market, and they pull back. But I wouldn't want it to pull back too much more, to be honest. I'd like to probably 3,900 would be a very sufficient pullback down to this roll reversal zone here. I've got to extend the line now because we've been there for quite some time. But even a pullback to that level there and see continuation probably up to the 4,100, which is the next real resistance for it. I would probably expect that's where it would try to gravitate to, as long as we don't get any more shocks to the market. But I could anticipate maybe a little bit of a pullback and then some bullish strength up to the 4,100. It's going to take a lot to look for shorts now. In fact, we probably wouldn't even touch it. I think even any shorts now, I probably wouldn't believe them until we have at least a week's worth of trading. So look, we'll certainly look at this again next week and see what the market has done. But I think we need to be very aware that, we could see a little bit of a pullback, but the strength and the inflation story is all the rage now. And we saw our first sign that the market could be pivoting out of an inflationary environment to see that reversal. So hopefully everybody's had a great week's trading. I think we've seen some really good trading opportunities throughout the week. We'll have a good weekend and we'll look at it again. We'll revisit next week and we'll see what we can find and see if the market has continued its strength or indeed if it looks like it's starting to weaken off again. Thanks, everyone.